Ladies and gentlemen, it is Tuesday. It is Tuesday evening, but it is still Tuesday. Your boy Nicky Stees is here. NFL Week 4 is over. Let's recap it.
Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Stees! Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue, think they slate, dropping unrealistic mad 2K takes for the clip. Even though cats like that get views closer to the millie, never hear me preach, look on to Philly. Before you watching the Eagles all the way through the early 22, authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way. Sports content for the reals that feels like day.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to NFL Week 4 recap with Nicky Stees. Please do us a favor. Make sure to like and subscribe to both my channel and the Hardcore Sports Network's channel, as we're doing this on both platforms. We got our usual fan, Daniel Barry Sports Highlights, stopping by as always. Always appreciate the support. Thanks as always, and now let's get into it. We're going to start off by talking about Thursday night with the Dallas Cowboys beating the New York Giants in what was an underwhelming game. Now, Dak did have 2 touchdown passes, but at the same time, you just look at the way the game played out. It was just like, yeah, the Cowboys won, but they should have done better. I mean, we saw this is the same Cowboys team that destroyed the Giants last year on the week 1 in prime time and made a statement win there. But the Cowboys so far, a team that's 2-2 early in the season, that's not looking like their usual selves, where you knew they were at least going to be a contender to make the playoffs in the NFC the past 3 seasons. This year, they're at 500. They beat the Giants, but they did so in an underwhelming way, barely beating them, only winning by a score of 20-15. That's a bit of a red flag for the Cowboys, that things aren't so on the up and up for this team as it usually has been the past couple of years. And we joke about the Cowboys choking come playoff time, but so far regular season, it's not looking so great early. Now, granted, they don't have the best weapons around them, they don't have the best talent there, but at the same time, they're not, they've won 2 games, but they beat the Browns, who are a complete disappointment, and they barely beat the division rival, the Giants. Now, granted, division rival games usually are more competitive regardless of the quality of the teams. I'll grant you that. But still, the Cowboys just did not do anything to impress me in this win. Even week 1 last year, they were more impressive and made the statement that they were going to be one of the top NFC teams, which they were. But this time around, it was an underwhelming performance by the Cowboys, and even victory. I mean, Dak did throw for 2 touchdowns, but other than that, the offense really didn't move much. And they kind of got lucky they were playing the Giants, because otherwise they probably would have lost this game and went to 1-3 if they were playing a better team, such as the Commanders, which I'll get to later, or the Texans, or Kansas City, or any other quality team. Now, they don't play the Texans or the Chiefs this season, but I'm illustrating a point that the way the Cowboys performed, if they played a better team, I feel they would have lost this matchup. But they did find a way to win. They're 2-2, but I'm not that impressed with them. I want to see what the Cowboys do from here and see if they actually improve and can win a few games. Now, they got the Steelers on Sunday, but the way the Steelers played against the Colts, even in defeat, I'm not too sure about that one right there. I think that's a loss. Then the Lions, that's looking like a loss. So you're probably talking 2-4. Then you got the Niners at the end of October. That looks like a loss. Then you got the Falcons. You could be on paper talking about the Cowboys being 3-5 after week 9 on coming Monday, November 4th. So it's not looking like a strong, promising start for this team, but we'll have to see what happens, though. For now, the Cowboys got to win. They did what they had to. Now moving on to the New York Jets. Oh, I couldn't believe it. I personally just could not believe what I saw that Broncos game. For our weekly picks, everybody that was doing the weekly picks pool, everybody had the Jets to beat the Broncos. After the way the Jets beat the brakes off the Patriots Thursday night, week 3, we're thinking week 4, they got to beat the Broncos, right? Right. But they ended up laying an egg, losing by a score of 10-9. Jets laid an egg 10-9 versus the Broncos in just what was just a complete, what's the word? It was just a complete disappointment, is one way to put it. And the Jets looked undisciplined as all hell out there. They gave up 13 penalties, which is a key. And even last week, the one thing about their win against the Patriots week 3 is they gave up a lot of penalties there. And now this week you gave up 13 in a loss to the Broncos in a game you were heavily favored to win, where you only gave up 10 points. And the Jets, going back to the start of last season, have committed to 155 penalties through one whole season in 4 weeks of this season. That's a combined 155 penalties the Jets have committed. They're, as of right now, the most undisciplined football team in the NFL. And that plays a key role in them losing this game. And then you had Breece Hall. He just could not get going at all in this game. But I feel like the Jets could have at least tried a little bit more with him. Tried giving him the ball a little bit more, see what he could do. But it's just like, I don't know what happened, man. Did he leave the game with an injury? Let's find out. I don't think he did, but so far, I don't see anything about Breece Hall leading against Breece Hall leading. I just don't know what happened with him there. But for the Jets, this is a massive disappointment. After 2 straight wins, to lose to the Broncos 10-9, and you miss a field goal at the end. What a letdown for the Jets. But now you go against the Vikings, who were 4-0 and had an impressive win against the Packers, even though they nearly blew it, but we'll get to that in a minute. Now the Jets got to go overseas to play the Vikings. The odds aren't looking too good in their favor after this game. But man, that's a huge disappointment for the Jets right there. Rodgers did his best he could. We got to wonder about Rodgers. What's up with the relationship between him and Saleh and Robert Saleh, the coach? You got to wonder if that's going to be a problem throughout the season. Now, we don't know if there is issues between them or not. It's all speculation, but we have to wonder if it. But I feel like, as of now, since it's speculation, wait to see what the Jets do in the coming weeks. If the Jets start to turn the ship around, they start to play really good. They start to play well. They start winning some games. Then we'll just say that was all nonsense. But the Jets are losing, and we see signs of Saleh and Rodgers not communicating with each other on the sideline. Then there is definitely some truth to it. But that's something we'll see over time. But as of now, it's a disappointment for the Jets to lose that game to the Broncos the way they did. They need to learn some discipline, particularly when it comes to giving up penalties. But now we're moving on. Speaking of disappointments, you got the Jacksonville Jaguars 0-4 after the loss to the Houston Texans. Now, the Jaguars, I thought after the collapse last season, seeing how Trevor Lawrence looked, that I didn't have high hopes for the Jags. I thought, yeah, you're going to see that Trevor Lawrence isn't really that dude this year. But even I didn't think the Jaguars were going to be this bad. I didn't think they'd be 0-4. I thought maybe by now they could be 1-3, maybe 2-2. I had the Texans as favorites in the division. I still think That AFC South, I feel like the Texans and Colts are the only two teams that really have a shot. The Texans being the top team. I feel like the Colts are going to take second again, probably 8-9 wins, just like they did last time. But hey, Chad, what is up? Thanks for stopping by as always. Here's Chad, another loyal supporter of Hardcore Sports Network content creators. And we'll be talking about your Steelers in a minute soon after we get finished wrapping up the Jaguars' disgraceful start to the season. But now the Jags, you're 0-4. And Trevor Lawrence, now to his credit, he did look solid in this game. He did throw 2 touchdowns. Tank Bigsby had 90 yards rushing. The Jags offense actually moved the ball here. However, this is in week 4 after an 0-3 start, after Lawrence had a horrific game in primetime week 3. It's not enough. Apparently, but it still wasn't enough to win this game. And now you're 0-4. So you got to feel like Doug Peterson's on the hot seat as well. Now, he in a press conference downplayed the idea he's on the hot seat, but to me, I feel like here we go again with Peterson downplaying the idea that he's in trouble, which is something I, as an Eagles fan, know all too well. And it looks like it's happening again, but I feel like Peterson's got to be on the hot seat. How much longer? Oh, I thought I was seeing things in my neighbor's yard. I went over there and they got a puppy. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. And I can't believe, yeah, right, that's cool. But yeah, back to what I was saying, though. I feel like Peterson's on the hot seat and Trevor Lawrence. Okay, solid performance this week. I won't give him too much flack for this, but overall throughout the season, it hasn't been good. Let's see what the Jags do from here. They can actually win a game. I'm going to pull up their schedule real quick to see what they got in store. And so to say, yeah, they won this game. So they got the Colts. They after this 0-4 start. Colts looking decent. Then you got the Bears. Then you got the Patriots. Okay, some of those games could be winnable, but we'll have to wait and see. And moving right along, speaking of the Colts, we're going to talk about the Colts and the Steelers. An interesting game we had. We had ourselves a pretty good game between the Colts and the Steelers. The Colts pulled up the upset. But the big thing is in this one, I feel like in the long term, we're going to have to look at 2 things. Anthony Richardson had to leave with an abdominal strain, and Joe Flacco had to step in and did pretty solid. And even speaking of solid performances, Justin Fields himself, even with the Steelers losing, put up a solid performance. Well, first, let's talk about the Colts. Now, credit to Shane Steichen. He's got this team competitive. He's at least keeping them alive and keeping them in the mix. So credit to him for doing his best with what he's got. But for Anthony Richardson, there's a lot of red flags going on with his long-term future. Because last year, he had a few good performances early, but if I remember, he was in concussion protocol early. Then week 5 last year, which is right around this time last year, he had a season-ending injury. And now this season, he had to leave a game due to an injury, and he's questionable for next week. Those are some big red flags going forward for the Colts. Like, is he really your guy? He struggled so far this year, and he's missing time due to injury. He's getting injured a lot. That's a big red flag there for the Colts about what's your future. Are you going to have to go with Flacco? That's something we're going to have to wonder. For the Colts now, credit to them, though. They did find a way to win this game in spite of it. Flacco took over, and he looked good like he did last season and helped lead the Colts to victory over the Steelers. So credit to them. And to the Steelers, man, even though they lost, they did lose the game, but it was solid. They did have a decent performance, though. They did have a decent performance in this game. Justin Fields had a total of 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing. He did have 1 throwing touchdowns, and his passing mechanics, he looked pretty good in this one. In this game, he actually was solid with his completion percentage. You just got to kind of get the feeling that if the Steelers had better wide receivers, maybe Justin Fields could actually do something with this team. You got to wonder going forward, could this one game be the start of a turnaround for Justin Fields individually as a player, or is this just one good game? That's somebody looking forward these next couple games. Mostly get the Cowboys game coming up, and then go from there, see what Justin Fields does, and to see if he continues to put up good performances. And if he does, we can say, okay, maybe Justin Fields is turning the ship around on his career, but time will tell on that one. But yeah, Steelers fall to 3-1, but they do come back. They have the Cowboys next, so they should be able to get the win there and come back to 4-1. It won prime time. Then they got the Raiders after that. Should be a win, but we know the Steelers kind of struggle against the Raiders even when they're the favorites. But I don't think it's over for the Steelers. It's just one loss. They should bounce back. And the Colts, I think they'll be a solid team out of this. But it was a good game, man. Credit to both teams. And speaking of interesting games, let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings, man. The Vikings escaped with a 2-point win against the Packers. Now, I say escape because they were up big. They dominated the Packers throughout most of the game. Then they got outscored 22-3 in the fourth quarter and then nearly let the Packers come back and win. It's ironically a former Vikings coach, a deceased Vikings coach, once said it best. They are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook. Now, the Vikings still won the game, but they did let them off the hook a little bit, in the words of their late former head coach, Dennis Green, and it nearly cost them. But the Vikings found a way to win. You're 4-0. People didn't have high expectations for you, but hey, congrats to the Vikings. Sam Darnold actually looks solid now that he has a team around him. He actually has weapons. And the Vikings as a team are rolling with a 4-0 record. Now, for the Packers, an interesting game. Jordan Love. It's interesting because he arrived to the stadium wearing a Brett Favre jersey. And I guess in some way he kind of paid tribute to Brett Favre with 4 TDs and 3 INTs. Kind of sounds like a Brett Favre stat line, don't it? But on a serious note, though, man, Jordan Love, early on, he looked rusty. He had a couple interceptions early. Packers were punting the ball away, had some fumbles. Now, they did get it together in the fourth quarter, but I feel like that in part with him was because of the rust, because of the time he missed. And I feel like they probably rushed him back a little bit because even though Malik Willis, they were 2-0 with him as the starter, they're like, okay, we're 2-0 with him as the starter, but that was against the Colts who were struggling and the Tennessee Titans. We're going against the Vikings. This is a big step up in competition. We need our best on the field. So I feel like they made the decision to go ahead with Jordan Love anyway because they knew this was their toughest game. And to their credit, they did rally back late. Now, do I think it's over for the Packers from here? No, I think they still got something going. I do. I mean, the Packers do play the Rams coming up this week in week 5, then the Cardinals week 6. Those look like winnable games. Looks like they should turn it around. But man, the Packers, it was an example of they got hot too late. But I feel like that's in part because Jordan Love missed a few weeks. It took him some time to get going. And it was also part the Vikings took their foot off the gas pedal. But it is what it is, though. The Vikings ultimately did what they had to do. They got the win, but they're 4-0, man. You got to talk about them up there with the Detroit Lions as contenders in the NFC. And they're in the same division, so those matchups between the Vikings and Lions, those are going to be good matchups. Let's take a look. And you got the Vikings and Lions. That's going to be week 7 when they play each other. That's going to be a good matchup. So if you mark your calendar, if you want to mark your calendars, week 7, it'll be the Detroit Lions versus the Minnesota Vikings, their first matchup. That's something you want to look forward to. But shout out to the Vikings and Coach O'Connell for making that team work. And Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones didn't score a touchdown, but he had a solid game running against his former team. And you guessed it. Yeah, the Vikings, they're 4-0, man. But Sam Darnold's doing solid. Their defense is solid. But overall, good performance by the Vikings. And for the Packers, hey, you did come back late. I don't feel it's over for you yet. Can come back, bounce back next week. You got yourselves what should be an easy game against the Rams. Moving on. Speaking of teams that are a surprise team, another surprise team, the Washington Commanders, steamrolling the Arizona Cardinals 42-14. Jaden Daniels, 26 for 30. He had 7.8 yard per completion. That's insane right there. I mean, this guy, Jaden Daniels, he's so far obviously looking like the rookie of the year. His impressive performance last week against the Bengals, impressive performance steamrolling the Cardinals. Now, granted, this is against two of the bottom teams, but going out there and dominating is not against any team, and dominating consistently back-to-back weeks is not an easy feat no matter who you're against. But if you can go out there against garbage teams and dominate them, that's showing you got something, because you're supposed to dominate garbage teams. You're supposed to beat up on the bad teams to build momentum for games against the good teams. And so far, Washington, to their credit's doing that. And they're in first place in the NFC East right now with a 3-1 record. I got to give them props. But hey, shout out to the Washington Commanders. Shout out to Jaden Daniels. He looks like Washington may have finally found the quarterback, as long as he doesn't suffer a serious injury and as long as it's not mismanaged by the front office. But the Washington Commanders are 3-1. You're finding ways to win games. And from here, you go on from here. You got the Browns week 5. That should be a win the way the Browns have struggled. Then week 6 against the Ravens. That looks like a tough matchup. And then you got week 7, the Panthers. Week 8, the Bears. And the Giants week 9. This is a favorable schedule for Washington to possibly be 7-2. Possibly maybe 8-1 if they upset the Ravens. And this is looking good for Washington right now. Now, if you want a couple games in your schedule, you got a relatively easy schedule too. But hey, if you're Washington, take advantage of the soft schedule, win yourself games, let your quarterback build his confidence up, and go from there. And as an Eagles fan, this put me on alert that Washington could be a team to watch out for years to come, that we're going to have our hands filled with, which hasn't been the case in a while. But, well, actually, to be fair, we have kind of, we always play tough with our division rivals, but we're used to beating Washington no matter what, 9 times out of 10. And this time it looks like that team is actually going to be a tough team. And considering the way we've been struggling, which before we move on, quick note, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live on the network. I'll be doing my Eagles week 4 recap against the Bucks. I'll give my thoughts on that one then. So, with that being said, back to it though. Yeah, as an Eagles fan, I'm saying watch out for these Commanders, man. It's going to be tough. And then we get to the nighttime games. First, nighttime. Sunday night, the Baltimore Ravens steamroll the Buffalo Bills by a score of 35-10 on Sunday Night Football. Whoo! Wow, what a performance. I mean, give credit to the Ravens, though. They finally had an impressive performance and looked like a Super Bowl contender. They came in 1-2 against the Buffalo Bills, who were 3-0, who were looking strong. They shut down that offense to only 10 points. And the Ravens offense, Derrick Henry was running a muff all over that Bills defense. Look, he had 199 yards on the ground, 209 all-purpose yards because he had 10 yards receiving. And Derrick Henry did his thing. He was the lead rusher for that team. And now you see why the Ravens went and acquired Derrick Henry as their running back. They wanted that workhorse that can blow through people, has speed, can get you those big yards. And that's exactly what Derrick Henry did in this game. They got him going. They let him cook. And he destroyed that Bills defense. And the Ravens looked like a real threat in this one. And I feel like the reason why now they're getting rolling is because you got to remember, first couple weeks, you're not playing your guys in preseason. It takes a few weeks to get going. Maybe we're at the point now without the Ravens have got some of the rust out of their system. They've gotten back into the groove of playing football. And now you're seeing just how good this team really is. And yes, folks, the Baltimore Ravens, they're rolling, man. 35-10 win. Shout out to them. Now, I do feel like the Bills are still the top team in the AFC East because it's just one game. The Bills should be back. The way Josh Allen's been playing, okay, he had one bad game, but I feel like he'll bounce back. Now, the next game against the Texans, that's going to be the test to see how Buffalo will bounce back. If they can bounce back with a win in a tough game in Houston, that's going to be a big statement. That'll be a statement to say that the first 3 weeks weren't a fluke. But we'll have to see what the Bills, so that's going to be the big test for the Bills to see what they'll do. We'll talk about that more tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I'll be hosting Week 5 of the NFL Pick'ems exclusively on the Hardcore Sports Network tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So what's going down? You get to hear me talk about that a little more then. But yeah, credit to the Ravens on an impressive win. Looks like they're finally finding their groove. And for the Buffalo Bills, it's a bad game. But you know, Buffalo and Josh Allen, they have those games. So they should bounce back. And then you get to last night. We did have 2 games last night. First, we'll start with the Detroit Lions. An impressive win over the Seattle Seahawks in that game last night. You had Jared Goff had 2 TDs. He was getting the ball. He had Ramos St. Brown had a TD on a trick play pass. You had Jamar Gibbs, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns, who came in handy in my fantasy league here. Now you got the Lions. In the Lions, they were getting the ball off to Jane. You had Williams, Laporta, St. Brown, Patrick. Goff was getting the ball off, and he was connecting with guys on this one. So nice job there by the Detroit Lions here to get the win to improve 3-1. Now the Lions do have a bye. They get to take that momentum into the bye week. We'll see how they come back from it against the Cowboys in week 6. But an impressive win for the Lions. And for the Seahawks, man, this was obviously their toughest test to date. They fell short. Now they did give up. They did put up a fight, though. I'll give them that. But against a team like the Detroit Lions, top team, a contender in the NFC, the Seahawks just didn't do enough. They were competitive, and that shows they still got something, that they could still be a good team and make the playoffs. But against a top-tier team, the Seahawks just didn't have enough in this game. And I feel like that's all. It's like the Seahawks, to me, they're a good team, but they're not really, they're not a contender to me. Seahawks are just, they'll be a good regular season team. They're kind of the team for other teams to prove. They're the team that other teams got to prove themselves against. They're kind of the stepping stone for potential contenders to prove themselves against. And the Detroit Lions proved themselves against the Seahawks in this one. I mean, Geno Smith, I respect what he's done. He looked like he was going to be a bust, and he's turned out to have, he had 2 solid seasons. He had a good season with the Seahawks that first year, solid last year. He's done solid at times this year. So credit to Geno Smith. He's proven that he's not a bust. I respect him for that. But at the end of the day, he's not that guy, though. He's not going to be the guy that's going to get you to the promised land. With all due respect to Geno, I'm happy he turned his career from being a bust into being something decent. But I feel like Seahawks, that's only going to get him so far. But they're still one of the top teams in the NFC. And they're still going to be the test team for contenders to prove themselves against. And now, briefly, I'm going to get on in a minute. Once we get to the 29-minute mark, I'm going to do the 2-minute recap that I do to close out my episodes. For you guys that have been seeing these episodes, you know what I do at the end. I ramble on for 30 seconds about something, then I switch to something else for 30 seconds, and I do this over the course of 2 minutes to at least give acknowledgement to the other games that were played that I didn't get to mention. And then the Eagles games, of course, I dedicate a whole show to that, which I'll be doing at 8 p.m. tonight. I'm going to recap the Eagles Bucks. But anyway, let's get into it. 2-minute recap, folks. In 3, 2, 1, begin. The New Orleans Saints, after a hot 2-0 start, looking like the best offense in the NFL, crashed down to reality. They lost to the Eagles. Now they lost to the Falcons. Their offense isn't as hot. To me, hey, the Saints are now what we thought they were. And they've come crashing down hard to reality. You're now 2-2. Falcons are 2-2. It's looking a little bit competitive between those teams. And then you also got Kansas City Chiefs and San Francisco 49ers, the 2 Super Bowl teams from last year. I mean, the 49ers were 1-2, but they turned it around with a win against the Patriots. You had George Kittle back. He helped out. If you're San Fran, all you need is to get healthy a little bit. Get Debo back. And then you're actually looking like a solid team again. You look like you can do something. But KC It is an ugly win, but a win's a win. You find a way to keep rolling. You're 4-0. Good. That's what you're supposed to do as Super Bowl champs. And KC looks as dominant as they usually do. And the Rams, what? They look like they peaked. Matthew Stafford and them. I mean, Stafford still does what he always does and puts up decent fantasy performances. But in terms of winning games, it's not looking that great. I mean, with Stafford, it's like he has that Super Bowl ring under his belt, which at least helps his legacy a little bit. But you're starting off 1-3. You guys lost to the Bears in a game everyone had you pick to win in their weekly picks, nearly everybody. And you shit the bed. And then Caleb Williams actually had a decent game. He didn't play great, but he didn't do anything stupid or idiotic to cost him the game. He did enough to not screw up to help the Bears win. So Caleb at least had a solid game there. And for the Rams, it's looking real bad for the Rams now. And with this Packers game, I got the Packers favored against them. All right, so that's it for the 2-minute recap, folks. So I covered all the main subjects this week. Only last thing I wanted to acknowledge is the Miami Dolphins without Tua look horrible. They've been outscored 55-15 in the past 2 weeks without him. Man, they really do need to they need to do something at quarterback. It's a shame they got an injury-prone quarterback such as we got a quarterback like Tua who, when he's healthy, can help make a difference, but he's injury-prone, and you're not going to rely on him being there all the time. It's a shame for both Tua and the Dolphins organization that they're stuck in this predicament, but that's what happens, though. Unfortunately, when you have a quarterback that deals with injuries, you're 1-3, your long-term future is not looking great. It's a shame because that team, when fully healthy, are fun to watch. Tua, Waddle, Hill, Mostert, that's a fun offense when fully healthy, but it's just not there, man. So it's a shame, but it is the reality. Dolphins might have to consider drafting a long-term quarterback, especially if they get a top draft pick. But we'll still have to see how the rest of the season plays out and what the standings are. If Tua's cleared, he comes back, what happens then? Which I'm worried even thinking about that. But that's another subject for another time, man. Before I go, I do want to thank everyone that stopped by, whether it was just for a few minutes, for most of the stream. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this. Daniel, Barry, Chad, everyone that supports me here on my channel and my streams on the Hardcore Sports Network. Thanks for your support as always. I'll be back 8 p.m. tonight going live to recap the Eagles-Bucks game. So Eagles fans, make sure you tune in 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Catch my recap of the Birds-Bucks. See what I have to say about the Eagles' disgraceful performance. So that's all I got for you for now. If you don't catch that recap, enjoy the rest of your night. And then tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we got episode 92 of the Pick and Roll podcast. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to be paying tribute to Dikembe Mutombo. We're going to talk about Derrick Rose's career. We're going to talk about the Karl Anthony Towns trade to the Knicks. So we're actually going to have some basketball to talk about here in early October. And then 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, tomorrow I'll be back to be the host of Week 5 of NFL Pick'ems exclusively on the Hardcore Sports Network. So that's what to look out for. So for that, thanks for tuning in. I'll be back at 8 to recap the Eagles tonight, then Pick and Roll Pick'ems tomorrow. So until next time, Nicky Steve signing off for now. Peace.